are these people?
To India. So regular watchers of the show will understand that BRICS is a thing. What does the I stand for in BRICS, Care Bear?
India.
Yeah. So there's definitely been some economic partnerships being made against the West judgment, but there may what's the way to put this? There may be some two-timing hoes, I think is how Big Daddy Kane would have told people. So this is from Consortium. We had a real Consortium night, didn't we? So they do great work over there. We should have them on. I think that's possible at some point. To get them, we should send them an email. So this is MK Bhatrakumar. I think I got that one right. So he's from Indian Punchline, and he writes, India's massive shift in military policy. Massive shift is like one letter away from being pretty much what this is. So after the meeting of U.S. and Indian foreign and defense ministers, MK Bhatrakumar says Delhi is shredding its strategic ambivalence and joining Washington's adversarial stance on China. Yay, China, Care Bear. Who would have thought? Who would have thought they had some economic problems with that? China. So, if the United States is a declining power and China's rise inevitable in the Indo-Pacific, if Russia regards itself as a global power and is determined to bury the U.S.-dominated rules-based order, if the defeat of the U.S. and NATO in the Ukraine war has become a fait accompli, if Canada was encouraged by the U.S. to fret and fume over alleged Indian involvement in the killing of the Canadian Sikh separatist leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar on Canadian soil, if Israel's bloodbath in Gaza is actually genocide, well, India's policymakers haven't heard any of this. You think they haven't heard, Care Bear, or do you think they're ignoring it? Which one do you think? If it's naivety or malice, which one do you think that is? We were just a 50-50 guess on that.
Don't be rude.
So that is the message from the U.S. Indian 2+2 Foreign and Defense Ministers meeting in New Delhi on November 10th. Did you hear anything about this, Care Bear? November 10th. Mm-hmm. How long ago was that? We are the 22nd today, so almost 10 days ago, a little over 12 days ago. So the big picture is that after audaciously claiming the mantle of leadership of the global South as recently as in September, in a span of over 2 months, India is gliding over to the American camp as the U.S. indispensable ally, even aspiring to be a global defense hub with Pentagon help. The following were some of the takeaways at the 2+2 meeting. So, sharing technology relating to maritime challenges, including in the undersea domain. So we're going to give them submarines, which we're also giving Australia. So just keep that in mind. Me and Indy covered that. You look up it's like the American kangaroo or the patriotic kangaroo, something like that. Indy will be in the chat to tell people which one that was. So also co-development and co-production of ground mobility systems. India to undertake U.S. aircraft maintenance and mid-voyage repair of U.S. naval vessels. That's a big one. That's essentially they get to park in your garage. Like we can leave our aircraft carrier there. So U.S. investment in India's maintenance, repair, and overhaul of U.S. aircraft and unmanned aerial vehicles. Finalization of a security of supply arrangement, which will deepen the integration of defense industrial ecosystems and strengthening of supply chain resilience. We've been talking about that all night, pretty much. Creation of new liaison positions between the two armed forces, further to India's full membership of the multinational combined maritime forces headquartered in Bahrain. Maximization of the scope of the logistics and exchange memorandum agreement and identify steps to enhance the reach of the U.S. naval vessels to Indian bases. No doubt, the above is only the tip of the iceberg. While this extraordinary transition in Indian policies will largely remain behind closed doors, the U.S. seems supremely confident that India is ready to enter into an exclusive alliance, something that New Delhi never sought with any big power. What is the offer that the Biden administration has made to India that the latter cannot refuse? Clearly, such a massive shift in India's military policies need to be correlated with the fundamental postulates of foreign policy. That said, curiously, call it a bipartisan consensus. See Book of Collin, chapter 9, verse 4. On whatever India's main opposition party apparently couldn't care less about this shift. This is not surprising. The shift is actually about a nascent India-US alliance to counter China, and that is a policy from where it's difficult to choose between Tweedledum and Tweedledee. To be sure, both Russia and China understand that Indian foreign policy is transitioning, but they pretend not to notice and would hope it is an aberration. At any rate, neither Russia nor China can stop India in its tracks. Their capacity to leverage Indian policies has dramatically shrunk, Moscow's in particular, in the contemporary security environment. The heart of the matter is that India is not ecstatic about the growing multipolarity in the world order. India is a beneficiary of the rules-based order and feels far more comfortable with a bipolar world order where multipolarity, if at all, remains a fringe phenomenon, while the U.S. preeminence will continue to prevail for decades to come. Such a paradigm is perceived as advantageous for India to navigate its pathway towards checking China's hegemonic instincts while also optimally developing its own comprehensive national power. It is an ambitious agenda which is risky too as policy change in Washington as presidents come and go and American interests get redefined and priorities change. Today, however, the Indian willingness to align with the U.S. is more evident than ever before. The animus against China's rise is palpable at the 2+2 meeting. India has cast away any residual pretensions and is shifting toward an openly adversarial relation with China. The QAD has become an important locomotive to be sure. A Chinese response can be expected. When or in what form, time will tell. This is only possible because Delhi feels reasonably assured that Washington's Indo-Pacific focus remains intact under the Biden administration despite growing engagement with China seen in the summit meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Biden in San Francisco. You remember this, Care Bear?
Mm-hmm.
So with both sides hoping to make the Sino-American relationship more predictable. Looky-loo here, Care Bear. Right? We've got in this corner. Do you know that guy, right? You recognize this little guy right here?
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little
It's
blink in
hard to
there. And then Lloyd Austin. We've talked about both these guys before.
Yes.
So, yep. And Defense Minister Rajnath Singh and the Minister of External Affairs D.S. Jaishankar at the 2+2 ministerial meeting. This is November 10th. Did you hear anything about this anywhere else?
Nope.
Yep. The three regional issues that figured prominently at the we're getting into the good stuff here. At the 2+2 were Afghanistan, Ukraine, and the Palestine-Israel conflict. The joint statement devoted a separate paragraph with the subtitle Afghanistan, which implicitly accused the Taliban rulers of not adhering to their commitment to prevent any group or individual from using the territory of Afghanistan to threaten the security of any country. Okay? Right? The joint statement went on to pointedly recall UNSC Resolution 2593, which specifically demands that Afghan territory not be used to threaten or attack any country, or shelter or train terrorists, or to plan or finance terrorist attacks. Okay? So that's where we're starting. Delhi is making a radical departure from its attempts to constructively engage with the Taliban rulers. One reason could be intelligence inputs to the effect that Afghanistan is once again becoming a revolving door for international terrorist groups. I wonder why. A second possibility could be that the US and India share a sense of exasperation of the Taliban's growing proximity with China and the specter of Afghanistan turning into a hub of the Belt and Road Initiative. Beijing's plan to build a road connecting Afghanistan via the Wakhan corridor. What are we talking about, Care Bear? What is this? Belt and Road Initiative. Road connecting Afghanistan via the Wakhan corridor. What is this? What we just talked about this earlier.
Silk Road.
Yes, is the Silk Road stuff all over again. So, is a geostrategic game changer. We literally heard that. That was the phrase used earlier. Anything that relates to the security of Xinjiang is of incessant interest to Delhi. The 2.2 joint statement signals a renewed U.S.-Indian convergence on Afghanistan. How far this would translate as proactive moves is a moot point. Notably, the U.S. and its allies are also exploiting Russia's preoccupations with the conflict in Ukraine to double down on their post-Cold War strategy to roll back Russian influence in Afghanistan. Moscow senses that it is losing ground in its backyard. Sure. When it comes to Ukraine and the Palestine-Israel conflict, what emerges is that the U.S. and Indian sides have succeeded in harmonizing their respective positions on these crucial regional conflicts. Delhi is shedding its strategic ambivalence and moving towards the U.S. position. This comes out in the strokes in the joint statement by what it says and what it doesn't. Thus, on Ukraine, Russia's attritional war has consequences predominantly affecting the global south. End quote. This apart, Moscow can learn to live with the 2+2 formulation in the Ukraine war. As regards for the West Asian situation, the joint statement voices vehement support for Israel's fight against terrorism, but here again, India refuses to call out Hamas, nor is India endorsing Israel's war on Hamas, leave alone prejudge its chance of success. And most important, the joint statement omits any reference to Israel's right to self-defense, mentioned constantly on Biden's lips. India cannot possibly call the Gaza war an act of self-defense when Israel has unleashed such a brutal military operation against hapless civilians and razed Gaza City to the ground, reminiscent of the joint British-American aerial bombing attack on the city of Dresden, the capital of Saxony during World War II, which killed over 25,000 German people. So, consortium's also letting you know that Badra Kumar is a former diplomat. He has India's ambassador to Uzbekistan and Turkey. His views are personal. So, thoughts, Care Bear?
So I was talking to Nuno about this earlier. Nuno, I talked to him about. He's extremely knowledgeable about India. Well, it helps that his girlfriend is Indian, so
yeah,
he's able to tell me. And he has a huge interest in the country anyway. But he mentioned to me, which makes sense given the article, that this is mostly all of this is happening is basically to please the right wing in India in terms of appeasing that base who are very anti-China. Nothing to do with the geopolitical benefit of China. Of India, rather. So, but as we can see, even they they kind of want to block China's influence in terms of the region. So they too are looking to, which this, so as you said and what we've said, the idea of BRICS with India in the mix and Brazil that we know of right now are problematic as hell because they have one foot in terms of seemingly wanting to break away from the West and another foot into being a part of the West in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a question of are they there really to commit? Like, I'm really thinking this now. Are they really there to kind of commit sabotage to
Well, we're
the
seeing a
idea
lot
of
of.
BRICS even being
I,
a thing?
I think there's a lot of ongoing deals happening, right? Like you're seeing a lot of global recently in Argentina, where Javier Milei,
Mhm.
like, oh, suddenly
Yeah.
we get someone who's pro-US, pro-Israeli down there in the global south, you know. So you're seeing Brazil get its hands dirty that way too. So you might have more than one two-time and ho in
Right.
your mix. So like, and I guarantee you will see like Russia and China both work their magic too. Like if you think they're not capable of making offers themselves, they clearly have been. So I think that's you're going to see that absolutely. So
Yeah.
you know, like I mean, China's what in Papua New Guinea now, West Papua or whatever. I forget the differences.
Yeah.
I saw a thing about that where like some of the people we looked at last time like had captured a like pilot, you know, and was like, give us what we want, or like the pilot gets it, like that's
Mhm.
happening. So it's interesting. Um, but yeah, just global shifting happening, multipolar world stuff. So fighting for
And it's
power and
all
dominance and resources.
and so it just kind of goes to show how everything is connected that we can't afford to be so uh isolationist if that's a word. Um
Yeah,
like
you
in
just
terms of
gotta
just thinking like, oh,
keep your eyes on a swivel, pretty much.
right.
You know.
Yeah. So it just makes me mad that, certain groups in the country are just like, oh, we have to worry about ourselves and like, which I get, but you can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can worry about your keep a pulse on what's happening worldwide and see how that will affect you at home. So, because a lot of these policies that are happening overseas is either by our influence or those influences will kind of come by us more often in the ass later.
Yeah.
So we need to be attuned of what's happening around the world so that we can we can be better prepared of how to adjust if need be, given policy. So, but yeah, I think it's just very interesting. It's just uh, it's going to be interesting how the BRICS is going to play out over the next year, especially what's happening in Israel.
Yep.
Right now, I think next year will be kind of telling to see who, as you say, who are the hosts in the allegiance and who are really are in it for um, the right reasons.
Yep. Well, I'm looking for a calendar. Um, we might have to just
I I,
wing it.
I don't think one was created this week,
Yep.
and it
I'm
makes
looking
sense
for an old
given
one.
this is going to be an odd week. But
I got one.
you got it.
I
Oh,
mean,
one was made.
I got last week's. I can run with that, and then we'll just tell people where it's probably wrong.